Ah, sweet. Let's find my stuff. It's all right, I'll cut the beginning off.
It's fine. Let the students see behind the scenes. Everything is totally always planned.
Oh yeah, exactly. Sweet. So, well, this is a very informal chat about
Definitely, yes.
WWDC. How are you doing today, Josh?
Yeah, doing good. What about yourself?
I'm pretty good. I've spent a little bit of time looking at WWDC stuff, but
Probably
not
more than I have.
not much. So, but we'll talk a little bit about our thoughts on, I guess, things that were announced, but also maybe implications that it may have on FIT3178 going forwards. So, did anything you've at this point, obviously, or probably seen the keynote, probably seen some announcements in the media or something?
Yeah, definitely saw bits and pieces of the keynotes. I never watched the full thing, but I definitely catch a follow-up basically afterwards of just here are the main announcements. And I guess the big one, obviously, Vision Pro coming to Australia finally.
Yeah, I mean, you teach into games development units and use VR, AR kind of technologies. Are you excited about this?
Yes and no. So I've had the opportunity to actually use Vision Pro.
Okay, cool.
So it is really, really good. The price is a problem still.
Yeah.
And I think based on the current rumors that came out after WWDC about Apple exploring like a significantly lower cost version of the Vision Pro, I think they recognize that as well. Because it looks fantastic and I can see a lot of really good like mixed reality applications and games that could be developed for it. But when it's $6,000, it really limits like access to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think there's another sort of set of aspects to that, which are things like I think it's the only headset that has these kind of customized lenses and things like that.
Yes.
Right?
The standard, so the MetaQuest 3s that we have here, those let you wear your glasses.
Right. So the sort of standard approach is if you've got kind of corrected to normal vision with glasses, you're just wearing glasses under the headset. And this is the first where it's sort of you need to go out and have custom face mask, custom.
Yeah, it has to, and it has to be from a specific company as well, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
I mean, I see the pros and cons to it. Again, cost becomes an issue in terms of cons. Pro, because it's actually like custom designed for the headset, it does mean that you get a better fit of the headset on your eyes. Because that is one of the things when you deal with the like even the MetaQuest, which is I think the third one, so the Oculus Quest 3.
Yeah.
Really, really good, has really good pass through, not to the same level as the Vision Pro, but its fit can be a bit iffy just because it has to accommodate wearing glasses.
Sweet.
Thank you for joining us, Adrian.
Hey there, Adrian.
Hey, how are you guys?
Going well.
Thank you. We're having a very kind of informal chat about WWDC. Where are you?
I am in the city office. I had like half an hour between meetings, so I thought I'd pop in and see what was going on.
Excellent. We just started talking about Vision Pro and coming to Australia, which is
officially coming to Australia.
Officially, yes.
Coming to Australia, exactly.
Either of you guys gone and done the demo yet?
We have them here.
Oh, you have them here?
Yeah. So a couple of the labs have one. I've actually had the opportunity to use one.
Damn. No. Maybe I have to come back to Monash. But no, because when I was over there in the States, I got to try one out. And yeah, it was really, really cool. I actually liked it.
Yeah, no, I liked it as well.
My line is, if I had any other reason for buying one other than just watching Netflix, I would be buying it so quickly. But I have not found a use case for me yet other than just watching Netflix.
Yeah.
And I think $6,000 a little bit too steep of a price tag for me.
Yeah. I mean, that's what they've said. I mean, I haven't used one, but they've said the sort of theater experience of them is pretty insane. It's like watching a massive theater screen wherever you are.
It was, yeah.
It was.
it was really, really cool. They Yeah, because when they did the demo, they did, you know, like a 5 minute long sort of just like clips of, you know, most of it was like nature documentary stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was really, really, really cool. You know, it was like fully immersive and all that.
Mm.
And the spatial images as well. That was more impressive than I thought it would be. I thought it'd be sort of like a little gimmicky thing. But yeah, no, it was really like, it was actually like you could feel depth in the image. I did find though, because you can take spatial images with Vision Pro and now you can take them with iPhone as well.
Yeah.
They showed both of them, and I felt like the ones you took with Vision Pro were like better quality. I don't know whether that's just because, you know, the cameras are further apart, so you get more depth or something. But yeah, with Apple's thing with Canon or whatever it is, where they're making the spatial lenses now, it'd be interesting to see.
Oh yeah,
the quality of that.
some of the double lens cameras that are coming out. Yeah.
And I think Blackmagic Design are also involved in that, who are a Melbourne company.
Yep, they have shown off their like super high-end one. I will admit they look a bit ridiculous, but
But this is probably aimed at like the movie industry or something. Right?
yeah, like, these are like $20,000 plus cameras.
Yeah.
These aren't the kind of things that a consumer would be going and buying.
But if you're dropping 5 or 6K on a 7K on a Vision Pro, then 20,000 on the camera.
20,000 to then go take footage for it so you can actually use it.
Yeah.
Apple's got their own streaming platform, so wouldn't surprise me if we do eventually get, at least on Apple TV, spatial. Or even because you've seen, I don't know whether you've seen the pictures of like NBA games where they've got, you know, like the big double lens cameras that are owned by Apple in there. So they're definitely doing stuff. It just hasn't really come out yet.
Yeah, and I guess at some point, if people are just like, oh, this experience is amazing, it's like attending these sports events without actually being there, then maybe it's worth paying this kind of money for. Yeah, it's interesting.
Interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea as well of the Vision Pro and using it as a big screen. I think one of the features they advertised this year is like the an extended 4K display, like use of it. I don't know.
It's almost like 180 degrees or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't know how you go wearing it for sustained periods of time.
I've heard that it hurts your neck a bit. It's quite front heavy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if you've just got like the one strap that sits on your back, but then there's another one that has like the top strap on it.
Yeah,
supposedly
but I think
that's better.
Yeah, there's no counterbalance to it because everything is in the front of the face, and there's actually no weight at the back. So even then, from what I've heard, it can for some people give some neck strain.
We'll just have
like
to
sticky tape the battery pack to the back of your head.
Exactly, just add the battery pack to the back. So you've got a counterbalance.
A little miniature fishing rod with a weight hanging off the back.
There you go. Cool. Any students that are watching this and doing Maker Lab semester 2, you've got some ideas.
Exactly. I love it. So anything jump out from the announcements for you, Adrian? Anything you're excited about for next year?
I really liked all the app intent stuff. I think that's really cool. Obviously, it's a framework that's been around for a while and I've played around with it, but yeah, it's been incredibly janky the past few years. And particularly with like the series shortcuts and all that, users had to like go in and manually add them. So now that everything's a lot more automated and all that, yeah, I think it would be a really, really great experience. I played around with it and made a few, and yeah, it does seem pretty simple to work with, which is nice.
Yeah, I mean, those that don't know, for any students watching this later, app intents are basically the way that you can advertise features of your app to, especially things like Siri, and you know, basically expose certain capabilities. And for a long time, they were limited to certain categories, and they've kind of widened those categories over time. I don't know what you mean by janky. Is that just that?
Yeah, I don't know whether you ever made one, but basically what you would do when you were defining an app intent was there was the Siri intents framework, and you'd have like a big Siri intents file that you'd basically be like making a dialogue tree out of.
Yep.
And yeah, it wasn't pretty, but now it's all, you know, in code, it's in Swift. It's, yeah, you're right, basically just your entity, which is your actual object you're doing, and then your query that's, you know, fetching all your objects, and then you just mash those two together in whatever sort of combination you want and make, however many intents. So yeah, it was reasonably simple to make it, which is nice.
Yeah, that's good. And the intents framework forms are kind of part of this semantic index that Apple Intelligence and the new Siri makes use of, I believe. So, I mean, I think they talk about the new Siri as being able to take action and do things with apps, and part of that is via these intents. But it does make me wonder from, they showed in their keynote a bunch of like Siri drawing information from several different apps and taking action and doing things with it. But it does make me wonder how much that's up to an individual developer to define every one of these intents and different things you need to do. And then how frustrating it becomes to the user when they find it's restrictive, as in it knows how to, I don't know, do something in the composition of a mail, but no one's written the intent to tell it to flag the current thing on screen, right? So then you try it and find it doesn't work or something like this.
Yeah, I haven't tried out Apple Intelligence, so I know from a development perspective, the domains it works over are very limited. It's like, files, emails, photos.
Yeah.
Is that the domains they released to the start? There's a few more coming later. So yeah, I'm not sure it's going to be like at least not at the start, the wide ranging thing where it's going to jump into all the apps. And even if you do make an intent for an app, I don't think Apple Intelligence is necessarily going to pick up on it and then combine it with other intents itself yet. I think it will, it's still like, it's cool, but yeah, it won't quite be magical as of yet. But yeah, maybe we'll get there one day. Who knows? But yeah, particularly with their app intent stuff, if you watch the actual, WWDC sessions and all that, their big sort of overarching theme for this year was like friction versus flow, where, if you're trying to complete a task, flow is, what makes it easy. Friction is what's trying to stop you completing the task. And, one of their big things is opening an app, closing an app, opening up. It's, small, it's low effort, but it's very, very repetitive. So we could maybe get to a point where, maybe more people are interacting with your app via voice than, actually opening your app. There's, particular categories of apps that, really may not need a UI at one point. They're just basically Siri only apps, which would be kind of interesting.
Right, which is sort of like putting the apps in the role that they were intended to be used with, like the Shortcuts app, where you could, take something and make it part of a bigger workflow where your app applies a filter to something and passes it on to the next. But as you say, there's no interface element for it because it can all just be done through a voice command or something.
Yeah.
Nice. So app intents, that's an interesting one. Do you have anything, Josh, that jumped out at you that, other than you said Vision Pro is obviously an exciting development, its availability? Other things you're excited about?
I'm trying to remember at the moment. I should have taken a list.
That's all right. I've got some things. Mine, like usual, are those like little small things that I use third-party apps for that I'm excited that suddenly I don't have to use a third-party app for. Like, I think, like stupid things like tiling apps in the window manager, and
I'm happy that iPad has a calculator now.
iPad has a calculator.
You would be surprised. The biggest cheer at WWDC was for that calculator app. Everybody just went absolutely bananas for it. It was hilarious.
I didn't realize iPad didn't have a calculator app. I'd always just it did.
How much was that? How much was that also part of the way they announced it? Was a bit tongue in cheek, right? They knew
it was. Yeah. And they proved me wrong. It's like, how, because their whole thing, same with the weather app, is like, we're not going to bring it to iPad unless we can do something special with it that, someone can't do an iPhone. And I was like, there's no way you can make a calculator exciting. And they did it. And it was very, very impressive. I will give them that. I'm
You-
actually excited to use
You're
this calculator.
talking about all of the handwritten mathematics stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I can't remember Apple's marketing name for it, but yeah, it's basically
Yeah.
you sketch out equations and it
Yeah.
can provide the answers to them, and
In your own handwriting.
in your own handwriting. Yeah.
Which, yeah, while I was over there, I met the designer. She was an experienced designer of the Apple Pencil, and she was actually working on that, working on all the models and that. And she was complaining that due to space, they took out the like stroke pressure from their machine learning model. So now your like handwriting doesn't include stroke pressure, and it looked kind of janky. So they had to like patch it very quickly and add it all back in. So
Oh wow.
yeah.
I mean, this would be the craziness of developing things for WWDC demos, right? Where everything's changing fast. They're racing to get things out, and different people are doing different things. It must be pretty tough.
Yeah, you got tight deadlines, and I'm sure these videos, all the presentations and all that are filmed, at least a month or two in advance. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So what was the experience like of like I could always imagine what WWDC would be like as an in-person experience, but this new hybrid model I've had the last couple of years, right, where you can go and attend in person and attend the keynote or whatever, and then there's just sessions, but
Yeah. Well, so I'd never been before, and this was actually the first time applying. So, for those who don't know, it's a lottery system to get in. So all you need is an Apple developer account, which $100 a year or something, and then once application's open, you sign up, and if you're selected, then you get an invite. So yeah, it's not a merit-based thing; it's just random selection. But yeah, this was my first year going. So yeah, it was held in Cupertino in California. It's about an hour south of San Francisco. And it's over the 3 days, so Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. So the Sunday is like sort of a welcome reception. It was held at the Infinity Loop campus, which is Apple's old headquarters. And basically everybody comes. It's where you pick up your badge and all that. You get a bunch of goodies and all that, and you just hang out. They have food, they have drinks. They had all the like Apple Design Award winners, all the Swift Student Challenge winners, and all that, all sort of presenting their app. Yeah, that was really, really cool. Just a chance to mingle. You put 6,000 developers, socially awkward developers, in a room together. We'll see what happens. Almost like a little science experiment. But yeah, no, it was really, really good. The one thing that surprised me though is like going around meeting people. Even though most people were iOS developers, there was a surprisingly large amount of people just from like random fields. Like I met teachers, which I guess sort of makes sense, like high school, primary school teachers. But I met like real estate agents. I met a law student from Austria. I'm just like, yeah. It's like, how do you guys even get here? This is wild. But yeah, so that was Sunday. So yeah, that was a good day.
and why were they there, Adrian? Just because they had an app, or they were working on something, or they had an idea, or
not even. They were just fans of Apple and wanted to come experience it.
Right. Okay.
I'm sorry, I can't imagine paying for a developer license just because you like Apple. I'm going to WWDC.
But historically, heaps and heaps of people paid for developer licenses, not because they were developing apps or even running software, just to access the betas.
Yes, I know, because of the betas as well.
I mean, maybe it's not that surprising that people want to be there. And yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah, and then so up to Monday, so that's sort of the main event. So you rock up bright and early to Apple campus. So that's sort of like the big UFO donut shaped thing. And yeah, so they start off with sort of the main presentation that started at 10 in the morning or something. Tim and Craig, so Tim, CEO, and Craig Federighi or whatever, the
VIP
vice
of
president.
software, something like that.
Engineering or something. Yeah. They came out, they, did some, just opening speeches and all that, thanks all for being here. You guys are what make Apple and all that fun stuff. And then Craig was talking about how there's no shenanigans this year, no funny business in the presentation, and then immediately went and skydived out of a plane.
With his hair helmet?
With his hair helmet, yes, which apparently is a real thing, because Joz, who's the SVP of marketing, was walking around Apple campus just wearing the hair helmet. It's like a legit thing. I was like, where do I buy this now?
That's great. So all these fans, these real estate agents and law students and whatever, next year they'll all be wearing them, no doubt.
Maybe, yeah. You just gotta find who's making them. But main presentation. So that was really cool. Then we had a break. I think it was lunchtime then. So lunch, came back, and then State of the Union, which is the more sort of, developer sort of tech focused things. So, it's a lot about what's happening with the Swift language, what updates are coming into Xcode and all that. So I think a lot of the sort of just fanboys of Apple cleared out there because, that's not really of interest to them. But then after that, so it was probably about, 2 or 3 at this point. It was, so they opened up all like the inside of Apple Park. So you got to, walk around, see sort of the big rainbows they always put in all their marketing stuff. And then they had all these like groups of Apple employees from different teams. And, if you had questions and all that, so they had like, the security team, Swift UI team, accessibility, sort of design, store kit stuff. So, if you had questions about any of your apps, any of the new technologies, you could, go ask the people who developed it in person, which is a really, really cool experience. And then, so that was Monday. And then Tuesday, the final day, they do developer sessions, which is a little bit of a more intimate experience where you're in sort of like groups of, I'd say about 30 people. And you go and you spend sort of like 3 hours, and there's like hands-on demonstrations and all that for some of the new technologies.
Oh, they were new technology sessions. So it wasn't like, people going along taking questions about existing frameworks or whatever. Like
No, so they did a lot of stuff, like they've opened up a lot of stuff where you can like train your own models and all that. So they did examples of that. They did some Vision Pro stuff with the new like object recognition stuff. They did a bit of Apple Intents and some Apple Intelligence stuff. So it was a really, really cool experience.
Awesome. So did you get to meet some famous people?
I did. I saw some famous people. Apparently Sam Altman was at Apple Park on the day. I did not get to see him. I was kind of bummed about that. I was running around trying to find him, did not find him. But I was sat next to sort of where all like the media all sit and all that. So I saw some YouTubers and all that. But it's really, really cool.
Nice. Would you do it again, Adrian?
Yeah, I would. It was. It was. How can I describe it? It probably wasn't quite as like grandiose as I was expecting, but it was a really, really good. I got to meet a bunch of people. I made some friends and all that, and just sort of being there, being in the atmosphere, being sort of around all that excitement, energy. It was
inspiring, right?
It was, It makes you sort of want to go. They're like, I can use all this, and a lot of the people there as well are like indie developers. They're all building their own stuff and all that. So that's inspiring as well. Just seeing people working on their ideas and all that, and sort of bouncing ideas off each other. I would go back, and it's free as well. It didn't cost me anything other than actually getting there and staying there and all that. But luckily enough, a lot of that was covered by work, so I wasn't complaining too much about that.
Nice, because I've heard hotel prices are quite expensive around there at that time of year.
Yes, my boss went last year, so I sort of got the rundown of, as soon as tickets go out, you need to book your hotel. So I got a pretty reasonable room rate, which is good in some way that's walkable to Apple Park. So I think
excellent.
Like 24 hours after I booked, they'd like doubled in price room rate.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
I know people who like book refundable hotels like a day or two before allocations come out, and if they get in, they keep their hotel, or if they don't get in, then they cancel it. So that's the way to get like super cheap hotels if you're prepared like that.
So I must ask, does the Apple HQ look as ridiculous in person as it does in photos?
Ridiculous. Wow.
The controversial take there.
Controversial take.
Oh, just the weird UFO design of it.
Oh, I mean, I think what I always thought is like, how big can it possibly be? But then when you get a sense of scale of the place, it's just like a massive area in the middle, and probably doesn't look as silly as it.
It was, it was humongous. So where we were, sort of. So if you've got the like ring out there, we were like facing outside of the ring, and there was a screen there. So walking into the ring, there was this huge atrium. I'd say probably at least 20-30 meters to the ceiling, and then that's the first floor, 20 or 30 meters up. So it is absolutely humongous, and sort of the inner ring and all that was huge as well. It'd probably take good 20-25 minutes to walk around the inner ring and all that. So
basically like nearly the size of Monash Clay.
I don't think it's going to fly.
A bit too heavy with all that glass and steel.
Exactly.
But it was really pretty. It was it was definitely cool to see it in person.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you've come back all inspired. That's great.
I have, it was something, because I've been an Apple fan for a long time. I've been, waking up at 3-4 a.m. to watch all these sessions. So it was almost like I almost felt like it was sort of like a rite of passage for me to eventually get there and, experience it all in person. And it was a really, really good time.
So where were you actually watching the keynote? On one of these outdoor screens?
Yeah, so like we watch it like everybody else. It's just streamed on a screen. I don't know whether we get it a few minutes ahead of everybody else or not, but it was there was basically just a huge outdoor projector, and then just a bunch of like lounge chairs, like lawn chairs and all that you could all sit in.
Yeah,
nice. That's cool.
Yeah, and it was a gorgeous day as well. It was like low 30s all in Cupertino there. So it was nice. You're in the shade, nice and warm. It was very relaxing, if nothing else. It was a good relaxing holiday.
Oh, that's
nice
awesome.
to escape the bitter Melbourne weather.
Yeah.
Come back to.
I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
We're perfectly fine outside. Just pay no attention to the people in the background
with umbrellas. Yeah. Yeah, and I guess you have like the crowd reaction to things, as you say, with Calculator or other things. You get to sort of hear the sort of feeling or the pulse of developers or fans' reactions to things.
Yeah.
So what else did they respond to? Like any other things that led to big applauses?
Xcode Assistant or Swift Assistant, whatever they called it. That was kind of a given. I think we're all gunning for that. I see the Android developers at work, and they're all like hooked into Copilot and Gemini and all that. It's like it's all built into Android Studio, and I'm just hanging here to be like, oh, okay, I actually have to code myself. That sucks.
So this is a good one. This one probably has implications on the unit, I think. So
Definitely does.
So
Yeah.
a couple of things. The older Mac lab is getting replaced. So we'll have both of our Mac labs at uni will both have Apple Silicon. Yes, confirmed. So that's good for students using those features. It does suck a little bit for students that might have older machines, but I think we have to, or we will want to embrace this and think about how we use it in the unit, because
Well, I was going to say there's no point trying to hide away from it, because if it's a reality of what developers are actually using, then it's a matter of how do we work that into the education rather than just saying no, you can't use it.
Yeah. And I guess in addition to the Swift Assist stuff, also they're doing a lot of I mean, that one's one that requires the cloud stuff, so it needs an internet connection. But they've got more contextual, or they say this every year, but better code completion in Xcode. Which I don't know, are you using betas in Xcode? What are we up to? 16 already?
Yeah, 16 beta 3 of 16 was released last year. We're using it to the extent that we're just making sure our app is building and too broken at the moment. So yeah, we haven't played around with it too much.
Beta 3 it'd be coming out soon then.
What, as public?
Yeah. What do they normally do? Get to beta 3 or 4 before they release?
It sort of depends on how stable everything is. Beta 1 and 2 were not stable in the slightest. We couldn't even get our app building. It was just crashing on us. But beta 3 is a lot more stable. So yeah, I'd probably say there'd be another developer beta and then it'd go out public.
Yeah.
But even now, like I downloaded it and tried to install beta 3 as the first one, and you need to run a couple of command line things to get it to even open, because it crashes and says that there's a broken plugin or something, and there's just known issues. It's
that seems worse than previous betas.
Yeah, but it's always different. There's different things. Yeah. So Swift Assist, that could be cool. I mean, I guess we need to wait and see what it actually looks like and what it can do. But that's super cool.
I think everybody's still trying to figure out what it's actually trained on, because I don't think Apple's released that. And I know I was watching some interviews with some of the big wigs at Apple, and they were pretty skirty around the topic. They didn't want to answer it. So yeah, apparently it's not on user projects, which is good, but yeah, who knows what it's trained on, because I imagine Apple Docs aren't enough to train a model or anything to be at that scale and to be accurate.
I mean, they could very well be basing it off of their own internal work as well.
Yeah. Do you think, I mean, these things need a lot of training data? I don't know. That's a really good question, Adrian. I wonder if you could just take GitHub projects that are written in Swift and how many lines of code that would be in total. But then I guess it's not like training it on, maybe they train it on Stack Overflow as well. I mean, but
then Apple's talking about this it should be, if it's got Apple branding on it, it should be making perfect Swift. It should be using, apparently it's got the, all the latest iOS 18 technologies.
Okay.
It's like if you use ChatGPT and, ask it for anything that was even last year that was released, it doesn't have enough training data.
Yeah.
Using Stack Overflow, using GitHub to give you answers, it will make up stuff. So
I don't think Stack Overflow would be a good idea.
No, I mean, you see Stack Overflow, the kind of accepted answers will often be then later updated with subsequent versions of Swift because the language has evolved so much.
No, I was more thinking Stack Overflow more general. I don't want Xcode to tell me I'm stupid when I ask it a question.
I reject the premise of the question.
Exactly. I mean, it's generative AI models and giving out of date information. I mean, the fact that Apple moves quickly on these and it's got to support the latest one, it's a really good question how it's trained.
It might, I reckon it's probably internal.
Maybe it could be, yeah.
But then that's a lot of internal projects.
If you want to laugh, dealing with marking some student assignments from the unit, it turns out that if you ask ChatGPT about the principles from the human interface guidelines. And let's say you wanted to get it to describe why your screenshots in your app fit with them. It will give you the principles from the Higgs circa 2011, which are very out of date at this point. If you can find them on the web still, but it says, you know, don't refer to these, it's been superseded.
Yeah.
But generative AI will just happily give you that.
That's a nice fun warning for any, well, I don't actually think it's relevant for the students that would be watching this, but prospective students don't, because it's very obvious to tell.
Yeah. Yeah, the training is interesting. I mean, yeah, this is the future of AI technology is just being used in everything. It was such a big part of the so many of the technology announcements. I mean, obviously I had this whole half-hour-ish section of the keynote that was about Apple Intelligence, and they just dropped in, oh, it's used in this app as this, and this app as this, and this app as this. But I mean, we've seen some of that in the past, but it feels like it's becoming a bigger and bigger part. But also, yeah, okay.
I was going to say it's the media buzzword, like the industry buzzword at the moment. Apple would be silly not to talk about it. And Apple has had AI stuff that they've been working for ages. I mean, Siri is a type of AI.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's
it's not a very good type of AI.
I swear it is better.
So, but this year it looks like they promise it's going to get a lot better and be more resilient.
I'll be interested to see how it goes, because particularly when it comes to privacy stuff, I trust Apple more than I trust a bunch of these other companies.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah, I don't know whether you guys have any thoughts on, like, because Apple Intelligence obviously on device, but it did have that, you know, we may send you onto like the Apple Silicon powered cloud and all that without telling you, but they're saying it's, you know, just as secure as on device, and you know, all the images are going to be independently tested and all that. So I'm still not entirely convinced on it, but
yeah. Like, I think you should have the option of choosing, not just we may.
Because that was the thing, is like, if it goes out to OpenAI and ChatGPT, it tells you it's like, you know, explicit permissions, but this is just we may not, we won't tell you, you'll never know.
But so, I mean, I've been thinking about this too, and I do have thoughts on it, Adrian. I mean, I do trust Apple in the sense that they've been, or they sound like they're being quite open about the architecture of it, about things like cryptographically signing the containers, allowing it to be verified. I mean, I can't remember, I think it was in the Developer State of the Union session, they were talking about how these cloud instances don't even have storage that they can write to, or the software is written in such a way they can't write and store request information. So I think if they do all this right, and you know, they've been pretty good about these.
Apple's generally got a good track record on privacy compared to the other companies.
Yeah, and things like signed instances on iOS devices and being able to verify software that way. I feel pretty good about this. The other aspect of it is like, it's such a different approach to every other company that's doing this. You know, like something like Grammarly, you know, and I have used Grammarly in the past. You just let it read like everything that's on your screen, and it just goes off to their cloud, and you have no idea what they're actually doing with it. And I'm pretty sure if you read their terms, they do use it.
Look at Adobe's terms recently of just, we may use this for training data.
Yeah, so I mean that's so vastly different than, at least like, whether they get it right and whether they have to iterate on it. What Apple have said here is like, from the outset they're thinking about it. The whole this private cloud compute stuff they've come up with, they've talked about it as what they think is, you know, industry leading in terms of security. I mean, hopefully, and I guess it's attached to their sort of bounty program that they use on various other things that they care about a lot. And hopefully that means it'll get scrutinized, and I hope that it does. But I'm hopeful about it, I guess.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat sort of as you, as in, if there's any company that I'm going to trust, it's going to be Apple. I think, yeah, I think they do have a really, really good track record, and I don't think they would be putting this out there if, you know, they weren't convinced that it was secure.
Yeah.
What?
Don't trust Sam Altman though, so I'm glad you didn't run into him.
Yeah, I guess the only thing that sort of concerns me, because, you know, obviously they've got their images and all that, and, you know, that's all being security tested, and I'm pretty sure at a software level it's fine. I guess though the thing you can't really test is on a hardware level is like, what if the servers themselves, something, you know, they've got something running on something that gets yeah, like, you know, someone's got a backdoor in somewhere, then there's nothing that anyone can do to, you know, figure that one out. And
But I mean,
the
that's the
chances
same.
are it's too late. So it's kind of like the Titanic, the unsinkable ship. It's like, it's unsinkable. That's sort of the, you know, they're spruiking it as this is secure as on device, but is it really? I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I'd say just by nature of the fact that it's leaving your device and has to travel over the internet, the answer is no. But yeah, which is why I think the best option would be to have the ability to choose whether or not you want on device, and just being realistic that if you do it on device, you may not get the same level of quality that you would if you had the cloud compute. But giving people that option to choose.
Yeah. Can you? I mean, yeah. I agree with you both. I'm kind of hopeful about it, but can you imagine any other company that would outlay the money and resources to create a separate secure set of servers just for this purpose for fielding AI queries? I can't really imagine.
I'm pretty sure Google's Gemini integration with Android is just, we're shipping it off, and
yeah, and it's
whatever
just
happens, I guess.
servers and whatever else.
Same for Microsoft with Copilot.
Yeah,
they haven't really spoken too much about how they're setting that up securely.
And what I think is, because these features are so convenient, people will use them regardless. In the same way that, you know, we entrust Google to have all of our mail for everything because the convenience of having, you know, an interface to work with it and search with it easily is hang on, I'm just trying to convince myself right now.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Hey, like my work stuff, sure. I actually can't. The free version of Gmail drives me up the wall with the amount of like embedded ads and crap that they've got in there.
Yeah, right.
I'd much prefer to not use it. The work instance is great, like no ads and all that. Yeah, cool, but
yeah, I mean, I think the private cloud compute stuff, it'd be interesting to see how seamless it is, how well it works. It's exciting idea. And I mean, the other part of it is just like the cost of these generative AI queries. And one of the things that they said is that the power of these data centers is completely off renewable energy, which I'm kind of happy about as well, because you know, you feel this potential guilt of asking generative AI to do tasks that are very computationally heavy.
Yeah, and that's been a big discussion point outside of this as well, is just like the amount of energy that it requires for these sorts of queries. So having it be off renewables is good, because what's the last thing you'd want it to be off, like coal or gas or something like that? Yeah, the amount of damage to the environment for convenience sake.
And I guess, do you have to go soon, Adrian? You said you were between meetings.
We had a few more minutes.
I got a few more minutes. Is there anything else you wanted to like mention or talk about, or that you're excited about?
Oh, I don't know. I think I'm just kind of excited about, you know, where all this AI is going to take us. How, you know, maybe this is just an indictment of like the larger tech landscape, but, you know, it's definitely a new frontier, and, you know, the pace that we've, you know, all this technology is growing compared to, you know, 2-3 years ago is, you know, absolutely astounding. So where are we going to be in another 2-3 years? What's the world going to look like? What's my job going to look like? Am I going to be replaced as a developer? Who knows?
No.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree. I think it's interesting to see the different philosophical approaches that you get from different companies and how quickly they embrace things and how much they think about its use. And Apple has been quite slow, like, and you could be fairly critical of that, right?
I wouldn't be. No, I actually think that's the appropriate response.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been caught at Monash, but I'm critical of how Monash is embracing it too fast, in my view. So
yeah.
I like the fact that they're thinking about it and they're thinking about security and thinking about the implications. I think that's good to see.
I was chatting to a friend over the weekend who's got a high school student and talking about how the high schools recommended if they have a question, something they don't know, they should ask generative AI, and then the school told them, but generative AI might get it wrong, so just be aware of that. And I'm like, okay, how do you reconcile that? If you want information, you just ask it, but it's up to you then to figure out whether it's correct.
Search engines still exist.
Yeah, I know exactly what's wrong. But I guess it still requires some expertise, right, to be able to.
No. I don't think it requires that much expertise to ask a question of a search engine.
I've always thought of AI as like what the calculator was to maths. Before the calculator, we were all doing maths. The calculator just, improved the complexity of, the maths we were doing and, made what we did quicker. But the thing is, if you don't know foundational maths, you can type whatever you want into a calculator, it will spit it out. I know enough about maths to sort of get a guess whether something's right or wrong.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if you don't know anything about a topic and you're just blindly trusting AI, then, you could very much fall into the trap of just believing whatever something tells you without having to think critically about it.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly a good point. The critical thinking skills is going to be the big thing as well. The ability to actually parse the information and understand what might be right, what might be wrong, and how to verify.
Yeah. Yep. No, I agree. I also thought it was interesting that I mean, Apple have also used machine learning and things in the past for like categorizing pets and photos of particular places or things, and that was pretty sort of hidden. It was just a feature that, if it didn't work properly, fine. It just didn't return all the exact photos. They're also using it for a lot more stuff now, but there's again some philosophical things about it, like the image generation stuff, not generating photorealistic things. Like they have options to generate sketches and animations and cartoons or something, but purposely shied away from photorealistic things and went, oh, there's other tools that can do that, but we don't want it. There's sort of this intentional purpose around it. I also think the personalization aspect is a very different approach. This idea of taking, because a lot of it's done on device and can use your contextual information about your contacts or your photos or whatever else. I think actually, if it's done well, it could be really useful and impressive.
Yeah.
It just remains to be seen how much it's like the old Siri and limited in what it can do versus how maybe the generative models allow it to be really quite flexible in terms of, they said in the keynote, we've got the sort of help features for the OS where you can ask how to do things, and they said, you can just describe a feature if you don't know the name for it. I mean, that would be pretty cool if it works well, and certainly helpful for my parents or people like that.
Cool. Well, I got to run, guys. Thanks for the chat. Appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks, Adrian. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thanks. You too. See ya.
See ya. Cool. All right. Well, what have we got? Sort of 20 minutes or so. I can tell you what else I'm excited about.
Yep, go on.
I had my list of like little things, and they're all tiny. One is the passwords app. I've used the passwords manager for years, 1Password. I like it, but I also pay a subscription for it every year. I think if it's built into Apple, I think this is the right move, right?
Yeah.
They've kind of had password support in the OS for a while, but having it synced across the devices, having it easily accessible, having it integrated with everything could be quite nice.
Yeah.
Certainly if you're an Apple user.
Yes, and I think that's the big thing.
So they did mention Windows version of their passwords app, which I think is great.
Yeah, so it would probably not be useful for me because I've got so many different devices, both Apple, Windows.
You need Android.
I do need Android as well. So I use LastPass. So for me, it wouldn't be that useful, but I know certainly my mum and my sister, who are both big Apple users that pretty much use Apple devices for everything, that'd be huge for them.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and might encourage them to be sort of use passwords in a better way than I know might otherwise, or have you already got them using like
No, I wish that no. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, like my family members then. So yeah. So that's one I had. Another is like grammar checking stuff. As I mentioned before, I have used things like Grammarly, and I think it's useful to have those tools. So like if you've got something that's built into the system everywhere and can do these checks. I did notice like at least from the demos, the Apple version's a bit different in that you have to like select some text and ask it to grammar check it. It's not like it's doing it all the time for everything you're writing.
I mean, I guess that makes sense from a
resources.
Resources and optimization side of things.
Yeah, I wonder about that too, because like we know these generative AI models or large language models are computationally heavy, and Apple's always touting battery life and things. And I did make me think, like, if you're using code completion on your device all the time, how much is it affecting your battery life?
Yeah, if you're using an LLM for that, then probably quite a bit actually.
And I do notice that also they require Apple Silicon for a lot of these features, mostly because of the dedicated silicon, the neural engine, which is designed for handling exactly these kind of queries. So that was one. Stupidly, the Safari has like picture-in-picture support. What does that mean? It basically means if you're playing a video, the browser understands it's a video and can like pull it out so that you can leave the page, keep doing what you're doing, and play the video.
I didn't realize that it didn't have that already.
I've used a plugin for that for quite a while, but this is like, just integrating and having it part of the system.
Yeah, convenience,
Yeah. And then the mail reorganization stuff that again looks like it's using machine learning, just like categorizing a bit like some of the Gmail stuff does, but also doing summarizations of emails so that instead of seeing the first, 20 words of an email, you get 20 words of summarization.
That's not a bad idea.
Key points.
That could be very interesting if it's done well.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of these things, I hope that they're just really seamless and you just maybe don't even notice them. You just go, oh, wow. Or maybe you do notice them and you think, gee, that's just useful. Cool. So was there anything else you wanted to talk about, or you want me to just look through my list and see?
I was going to say, just go through your list because I'm blanking on stuff at the moment.
No, that's fine. We talked, I think, about a lot of the stuff in Vision OS. Interestingly, it now recognizes keyboards and shows them in your space. So I guess it has a sense that if you've got a keyboard nearby you, an Apple keyboard, it knows and shows it. I thought that was interesting. I also saw that they do remember guest users, which I don't. You've been through the setup process, I guess, for Vision
Pro. Having guest users would be very useful because when we were testing it out here, it was the process you had to go through for every single person.
Right, and then presumably every time you swapped, it was like, and they didn't have an actual user account, then it's sort of time consuming. So this sounds like I could get you to try it, someone else could try it, we could go back to yours and it would remember it. And that would be quite nice, I think.
Definitely, yes.
Cool. So iOS stuff. There's a bunch of stuff to make home screens nicer that maybe should have been done many years ago, like arranging icons all around the screen, and there's some there's dark mode icons and tinted icons. I used beta 2 on my developer phone, and it was comically bad, as in like if it automatically switched to dark mode, things didn't work. A lot of the system icons became the developer symbol. The clock still updated because that one's dynamically generated, but always in light mode. I think I haven't checked it in beta 3, but I was just like, oh, this is very definitely a developer beta. They put a lot more stuff into Control Center. Which there's multiple pages, which I thought was okay. That's kind of quite different in terms of a control center where you just swipe down, see all your controls, and you have instantaneous access to them. But I thought the way they did it was kind of clever, which is that as you swipe down into control center, you can choose a stopping point, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So the further you swipe dictates which page you can get to. So as a single action, you can get to one of, 3 different pages, and there's different pages for different sections. I might have a section for HomeKit or something like that, or
no, that's an interesting way of
stuff.
handling it.
Yeah, because when I saw the announcement, I'm like, oh, that seems terrible. Like now you got to do like multiple steps to get to your thing, and then I was like, oh, okay, it's done in a neat way, and someone's thought about the interaction for that.
Which is
So
good.
yeah, which is cool. And I mean, there's a bunch of stuff there to be able to resize controls for developers to add controls. So it's possible that an app can advertise its own control and deep link to something in an app via the control center widget. So they're
actually using more deep linking then.
Yeah,
a bit more useful.
Yep. And also those, I don't know what they're called, the buttons that are on the home screen, the camera and flashlight can now get repurposed, I think, to any of the different controls. And
that sort of customization's good. Funnily enough, those are probably the 2 most useful for me.
Yeah,
but
I think I'd probably keep them the same, but also that button on the side, I don't know what it's called, action button. Did you change it to something else? And you've got a 15 Pro, right?
Yeah, no, I've kept it the same. I don't honestly use it because
what is it by default? Is it camera?
No, it's not silence.
Oh, it's silence. Okay.
It's a silence switch because it doesn't have the physical switch for silence anymore.
Okay. I think I changed mine to camera and then forgot and still like opened the camera the old ways.
Yeah, okay.
Just as I'm saying this, I'm like, I think mine's camera, but maybe I need to check it and see. What else? I think they realized so many people use messages as part of like one of the primary features they use iOS for. I'm still waiting for like
funny that people using a phone for phone.
Yeah, I'm still waiting. I mean, it does make me wonder, could Apple have just created an Android app for messages and allow people to communicate that well? And would, people use that a lot more than, I don't know, Messenger or something that doesn't use encrypted chat?
I reckon had they done it early, then yes, it would be bigger than or Facebook Messenger.
That really surprises me they didn't do that. And I maybe understand it because they're like, maybe it draws people to their devices, but actually there's so many other platforms people are using where messages could have been a really good solution. Anyway, there's a whole heap of new features this year. There's emoji responses. You can use any emoji instead of 5 they provide you. You can schedule messages to send later.
That one will be useful.
That seems good, right? They do text effects, which are basically like being able to do bold, italics, other craziness. I mean, I don't think I care about this, but
I don't care about the emoji one either. But
maybe my daughter will get excited about these kind of things.
I'm sure there's a market for it if they're doing it.
The thing that excited me most was the sort of work they did last year about using satellites for emergency calls. They now allow you to send SMS and iMessages, if they're still called that, over satellite, right?
Okay.
So, I mean, that's pretty sweet. If you're somewhere without an internet connection where you would have previously not been able to send or receive things, you can. And I mean, and they're doing that for SMSs as well. So that's pretty great. And I don't know if that's Apple being able to broker certain relationships they have, or they're just paying the cost of this satellite communication or what, but I think that's really, really cool.
I can't imagine it'd be that big of a cost for them.
I don't know. Yeah, it's really interesting, but that's pretty cool. I thought one of the significant things was photos getting quite a significant redesign, and this is one that's actually like played with it a bit on my developer phone. It's quite substantially different.
Okay.
To give you an idea, it's like you've still got a grid of all photos, but you can side swipe on that grid, which is sort of like the upper part of the screen. So imagine you launch the app, you've got like a photo grid on the top half. If you swipe left or right, there's a sort of carousel of different things, and some of them are like memory cards, so like cards set around particular memories of photos, or dates or other things, and it tries to, I guess, surface significant things you want to look at, again with AI. And then if you keep scrolling up to the sort of end of your photos, then you get to the sort of previous sections that are there. But like in the past, it was a tab bar app at the top level, right? And there was a tab for all photos and a tab for, I don't know, albums, a tab for you, I think it was called. But this one's like, it's got this sense of like trips and memories and recent days, and a lot of them do like auto playing. So if they're created through machine learning through a set of videos, they'll sort of be showing them to you.
No, that actually sounds really cool, because I'll be honest, photos at the moment, I basically just use all photos.
Right.
So, because I don't find use in the other top level stuff, having it so that it actually categorizes them could be extremely useful.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, I end up with a bunch of like screenshots mixed in with things, and they said one of the things you can do is you can easily hide the screenshots and just view actual photos versus the other ones.
Stuff from WhatsApp.
Yeah, stuff saved off the internet. I think they're classing screenshots as things that are non-photos or have come from the internet or whatever. So thought that was kind of cool. What else did I have here? There's some watch stuff I thought was cool. I mean, it's really weird. I've got an Apple Watch. I use it as a sort of notification device. I use it for sleep tracking, exercise tracking. I don't spend a lot of time in the apps. I use it for controlling media or taking phone calls or whatever. Like, it basically assists with what I'm doing, but I very rarely go into apps and
very rarely the focus. It's more just a supplement.
Yeah, exactly. It's a secondary device, but and I thought the main couple of features they announced for this, one of them was just like using machine learning data and providing a sort of vital signs app that keeps track of a bunch of different things, including, you know, sleep and heart and movement and everything else, but significantly kind of watches for differences, which I thought was interesting, because they talked about different things like alcohol, elevation changes, sickness, that have some kind of effect on your day-to-day, and leveraging some of the sort of large data sets they have access to through, like, I think they call it the heart and movement study or something, where they've, with permission, collected people's data, and then they can do some clever things with it. So I'm kind of excited by that, just because, I don't know, if in the future at some point you get sick and it goes, oh, these vital signs are changing in this way while you've been unwell, and it'd be interesting to see. Sorry, we're going to say something.
No, I was going to say, I'm not sure. That one strikes me as probably will need more development once it comes out, because I have a feeling there's probably going to be a lot of issues, but that one has a lot of potential. And I mean, that ties into a lot of the research that goes on here at Monash as well.
Yeah, true. And when you say a lot of issues, are you thinking things like their crash detection they announced last year or the year before, where it was going to detect when you're in an automobile accident, and then it was triggering for a bunch of people on roller coasters?
Yeah, pretty much.
And things like this.
Yeah,
and they're like, okay, they could test it so much with standard situations.
Yeah, where it's gonna have to come out and then actually get proper, like, widespread testing.
Yeah, exactly.
Although that being said, maybe not in the American context with their healthcare system, but a false positive over here anyway is probably not going to be
a huge issue.
Yeah, I mean, there's still issues associated with it, but it's not as bad as it could be. I'd rather a false positive than a false negative. That's for certain.
Absolutely, yeah. If it makes a few mistakes and accidentally alerts some people, but then saves some people's lives, that's a small price to pay, really. So yeah, I totally agree with you. iPads with tab bar apps are floating. Did you see this?
Yes.
I'm like, I don't know what to think of this. I haven't yet tried to recompile my app for iPad OS 18, but I can't imagine a floating tab bar in my app. It makes sense for these content-based apps where you can cover some of them over and potentially move it. I don't know what to think of this.
No, my comment is just make it more Mac OS like already. iPad OS just I have an iPad. I like using my iPad. It just really feels limited by like the iOS.
Oh, you would just like it to be able to
Do
run
more things
iPad.
that a Mac can do.
Yeah.
Like again, you've heard me harp on about this for years when they brought out playgrounds.
Right.
It's like they run like Apple Silicon chips in them now. Give me Xcode. I would love to have Xcode on my tablet.
I wonder if that will come. I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, next year, the year after we get that. I'm just not sure when it's going to happen.
It's too locked down at the moment. It's got so much potential.
Yeah.
Because it is now effectively like the same level as their Mac OS devices.
Yeah.
And I just feel that iPad OS is limiting it at the moment.
Yeah. And iPad OS is a weird beast because it's obviously diverged from iOS, but then it requires this additional development effort. And I think different apps have committed to it to different levels. So you get this weird experience where, like, even my own apps, they're not truly for iPad. They're sort of like a hybrid of being partly catering for iPad, but not fully.
Yeah.
And as a result, you end up with, I think, this substandard experience, which is maybe more limited than a Mac OS app, but still a bit better than iOS. But it also feels like it's a space they're playing around a lot more in and trying things. And I'm not sure what to think of that.
I mean, I'll give them credit. Their iPad OS is still a better experience than most Android tablets.
Okay, that's good. It's got a calculator now.
It does.
The thing I am actually quite excited about is I've got an Apple Pencil and use it fairly regularly for note taking, and just their smart script, they call it, their handwriting support is like, basically it'll take your handwriting and clean it up, and I can sometimes not even read my own handwriting. So if it does a good job of this and makes it neater, and super cool feature is they showed in, I think, the Notes app and maybe Keynote and some other places, is you can generate a can't remember what it's called, basically like I think it's called an image playground.
Yeah.
Right, but you can do this contextually. So you could sketch a note, and we could be writing a note about the things we're discussing in this meeting, and then you circle an empty space on the canvas, it opens an image playground, and it uses the contextual information from around the note to create a summary image or something like this. Which I think, if you're doing something for a presentation.
Yeah, I think like the note taking stuff, I think sounds really good.
Yeah. And
I just wish I could write more with mine.
Just you don't enjoy the process, or you don't have a...
I have RSI issues in my hand, so I can't write for more than 5 minutes without it being painful.
Okay. Yeah.
I enjoy writing, which is a bit of a shame, but
yeah, that makes sense. We should discuss, to finish up, some macOS features. I think the one I'm most excited about, and maybe I'll use in the unit in future, is the continuity stuff of being able to open your iPhone on the Mac and interact with it.
Yep.
And
that'll get used for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like, just where you have to look at an iOS app and just wanted to quick look, instead of picking up your phone, you can just sort of tap on an icon, view it. As long as it's quick, and it's not like some of the continuity features that it thinks and thinks and thinks. But if it's
quick, it'll be good. Also, I can see for development as well, it'll be useful just to be able to do that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's super cool, and the fact that it uses the audio off the phone and things like that will make. I mean, I currently use QuickTime, and the students from the unit this semester will attest to the fact that works maybe 60% of the time. It breaks where you're like, I use the screen recording feature of QuickTime to bring my Mac onto the screen and get audio and stuff. And yeah, that works fairly well.
Wirelessly.
That one's wired, but I also use AirPlay. I've tried, one of them works wirelessly, but not super consistently. And I don't know if that's because sometimes the Mac and iOS end up on different network segments because of the way that some devices are. Like my Mac, my work Monash Mac is
probably on a different
registered
subnet
and is on a different subnet, I think, than the phone ends up on, which is my own. No, well, it's a bring my own device.
Yeah.
It's not a Monash device, so it's been a bit flaky.
I always use wired when I'm dealing with that stuff.
Yeah.
I've had that's surprising though, because I have had good experience with the QuickTime
stuff.
Yeah, but if continuity is just going to be supporting that more natively, then that's even easier.
Yeah, exactly. I think my main thing is often I would like switch off the device and then wake it back up from sleep and try and resume.
That breaks it, yes.
So maybe
you don't switch it off, it works fine.
Maybe I'm being too adventurous about what I'm doing with it. So what else? That was actually the main thing. Like I always look at the features of iOS or macOS and I get excited about a bunch of them, and then I find I use like 2 of them or 3 of them each time. So I think that one, the continuity feature, I will definitely use. I think it's interesting the video conferencing side of things. A lot of the features that are built into a lot of the video conferencing, like replacing backgrounds, like lighting effects, other bits and pieces. Apple are doing more of these, and they're doing, I don't know, anecdotally, it feels like their models for doing background recognition look better than some of the ones from Zoom or something else. Be interesting to see if this ends up being the case or not.
If they're on the Apple Silicon, they do have like more direct access to stuff like the neural processor as well.
Yeah.
So that would make sense. Probably uses less system resources too.
Yeah, so I'm kind of excited because, and then also from a privacy perspective, it means that, I don't know, if you did want to blur out your background, it never even gets to that other application.
Exactly.
Right? It's been done at a system level.
It's being done before it gets there.
Yeah, so I like some of that sort of stuff. I thought ChatGPT integration was interesting. So
did you hear about what happened within the first couple of days?
No. Scandal.
It was storing stuff plain text.
Oh, but I think that's ChatGPT's app for Mac, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So no, it wasn't Apple's fault, but ChatGPT's stuff on Mac was just storing stuff plain text that could be accessed by any other Apple system.
Yeah, that's not good. So I mean,
they've already fixed it, mind you. It was fixed with pretty quickly, but the fact that got through was kind of concerning.
That is concerning. Well, I'm guessing it wasn't through the Mac App Store, right? It was probably just like
very specifically not through the Mac App Store. It was through their own website.
Yeah.
Which is because this was on Mac, not iPad. But again, this just goes back to the discussion of privacy we had before, where it's like I have more trust in Apple than anything Sam Altman has tied to. And
again, like this is where I'll be happy to delete, apps like Grammarly or apps like ChatGPT and hopefully just use the system features, even if that is my way of accessing ChatGPT.
Well, that being said, and Copilot, Monash now actually has their own instance of Copilot.
Yeah.
That has an iPad app as well. And because that uses GPT-4.
Does it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't have 4.0 yet, but I'd still be probably using that over ChatGPT.
Yeah, okay.
It's free for students as well, for any students that are watching the recording as well.
No, that's cool. Yeah. What I did like about the integration in Sequoia and I guess in iOS 18 and things was that they still have ChatGPT. It'll suggest it from things like Siri queries when it thinks it's useful, or that you can just go in and type a request yourself and get an answer. But it doesn't require an account, so you don't have to sign up. And if you do want to put a paid account in, you can and use the additional features. So I thought that's nice in that, you potentially don't have to give them any information and
hopefully there's a toggle to turn it off.
Yeah, and as you say, like hopefully there's a toggle if you just don't want to use it, you don't. So that's cool. The very last thing, a kind of just wanted to mention is Swift was always promised as this language that would be for an introductory language, but also like a low-level system language for servers and everything else. And I think they're getting closer to that each year. Like Swift 6 has a bunch of stuff. It's got better like C++ compatibility. A lot of the foundation library is now written in Swift, which means it works on all of the platforms, which is Windows and Linux, and there's a number
Put
of
an asterisk next
distributions.
to Windows, but yes.
Oh, really? Okay.
The Windows Swift is kind of iffy.
Yeah.
Because Microsoft obviously doesn't support it, so it's more third-party stuff.
Yeah.
I've used it before. It's okay, not great. The Linux stuff is great though.
Okay.
So, like Linux support for Swift is really good. Windows, I honestly wish they'd put more effort into it.
Yeah, I wonder if that's because it's
that's
a community project.
It's community. It's not Apple's fault, obviously, nor is it Microsoft's fault, which is unfortunate. But yeah, Linux support on the other hand is fantastic.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm hopeful again for this being used more widely. They're obviously using it for a lot of their own like web services and things like this, and obviously for running their secure enclave on the devices. It's a low-level hardware programming and things like that.
Having Foundation run Swift is great. The less that I have to deal with the Objective-C side of things, the better.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And then I also liked, like, I felt like one of the arguments against this kind of stuff is, but what do you write it in, right? Like, because all of the tooling and stuff is Xcode based, and you don't have all of the code completion and Swift Assist and stuff. And one of the things I announced was a web service SDK that things like VS Code or something else can use to get some of those to get those features, which I think is really cool and probably needed.
Yeah. That being said, Visual Studio Code's Swift implementation is not bad either.
It's good. Okay.
Yeah, no, I've whenever I've had to code stuff, when I haven't had my MacBook with me, I always use Visual Studio Code, and it's pretty good for Swift UI or Swift. Sorry.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, we've kind of hit time. Any last thoughts? Anything you want to mention?
No, not that I can think of. It'll be interesting to see where the AI stuff moves forward for Apple.
Yeah, I mean it'd be interesting a year's time to reflect on this, right? And say what actually worked, what didn't, how's it been received.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Josh.
No problem.
Thanks everyone for watching.
Take care.
See ya.
It's right there.